Orange and blue today, the Denver Broncos coming out of their bye. And a mystery, Andrew Mason. Do you like mysteries?
As a genre, I'm neutral on them.
Okay.
I'm not beating down the door to watch a mystery, but if there's a good film that's a mystery, I'm down for it. I'm up for a good caper. How about that?
Okay, a good caper that we are here to decipher today, orange and blue today. And what changes will the Denver Broncos be making coming out of their bye? I have a few ideas, Mace, but let's start with helping out Bo Nix, the changes that we could see on offense. Any predictions there?
Let's start with the running back position. I wonder if they're going to settle on maybe distilling the hot hand possibilities down to two, if they're going to leave it as a three-way thing, as we've seen. If maybe it comes down to Javonte Williams being third down back and Jaleel McLaughlin and Audric Estime being the two guys who are competing early in the game, as it were, to be the hot hand and get more run as the game progresses.
Right. And for me, with Audric Estime, Mace, because I was going to start with the running backs as well, how can you be the hot hand if you never get the opportunity? Because if they go Javonte to start, just based on what they've done, and maybe they change it, but Javonte starts, he's okay, below average, and then Jaleel comes in, and Jaleel's hot, Audric never gets the opportunity to prove that he's hot. Why can't you go double hot?
Well, they've done a decent job at times of making sure that third possession gets Audric involved. But yeah, I agree with you. It's like you decide on one, yet when maybe the thing is, okay, like you say, double hot. I think back around 08, 09, former Broncos coach John Fox, when he was coaching in Carolina, had D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart. And They both had 1,000 yards in 09. Stewie came close in 08. The thing that they would do is they would alternate possessions. So what that did was it gave each one a chance to find a rhythm on that series. So if you had a nice 9-10 play drive, the running back was out there getting the reps in and finding that rhythm. Sean Payton certainly seems to operate situationally more than some other coaches, and for example, John Fox did at running back. But with the knowledge that Javonte is your third down back, I do wonder if maybe the thing to do, at least in the short term, is make sure that you give the running back a full possession and be patient with that back and be patient with the flow of that series, knowing also that Bo Nix has done a pretty good job, with the exception really of the Cleveland game, has done a pretty good job at extending drives and minimizing 3 and outs.
Yeah, been doing a good job, and I've seen it in our YouTube comments, Mace, of people being like, well, he's throwing the ball so well. That's true for the most part, but Mace, I'm here to tell you, Bo Nix can be better if you run the ball. It's influence. If you're going to influence the defense to stack the line to stuff the run, that's one-on-one for Bo Nix. You give one-on-one to Bo Nix, he's going to kill you. You blitz Bo Nix, he's going to kill you. If you're run blitzing Bo Nix, he's going to kill you. Like, that's the part of his game. Like, it's good now. Brother, it could be next level if they start running the ball with consistency.
Yeah, it's not like the Broncos running game has been the worst in the league, right? I mean, it's as you would say, it's not great, Bob. But believe it or not, the Broncos, they're 20th in the league in rushing, where they need they're 19th in the league in average per carry. They're not bad, they're just mid. How do you get them from mid to good? What are the steps that need to be taken?
Top 16, do you think? Somewhere like I just think like 16.
Well,
if they were 16, I think that'd be good enough.
16 in terms of yardage, I think that would get you there. To be 16 in terms of yardage, you are probably looking at about 115 yards a game. Now, here's what's interesting. If you want to be 16th in terms of per carry, you need only go from 4.2 to 4.3 yards per attempt. And I bring that up because of something that we have discussed on earlier shows, which is the per carry production of these running backs. And you look around that room and you see Tyler Bidet on injured reserve, 7.8 carries on only 11 attempts, small sample size. Audric Estime, 4.7 yards a carry on 41 attempts. Jaleel McLaughlin, 4.6 yards a carry on 80 attempts. Marvin Mims Jr., limited sample size coming out of the backfield, 40 yards on 10 carries. And then you go down to Javonte Williams, and he's averaging 3.6 yards a carry. So that if you want to talk about this running game being even like top 10 in average per carry, all you'd have to do is get to 4.5 yards an attempt, and you'd be top 10. Well, Jaleel McLaughlin and Audric Estime are there. If they were getting the bulk of your carries, you would be a top 10 running game in terms of yards per attempt. That's something to think about as well.
Yep, because you can gash guys and you can continue to move the chains. We always hear Sean Payton today talk about staying ahead of schedule. You stay ahead of schedule when it's 2nd and 5, not 2nd and 9. And you stay ahead of schedule by running the ball. And that's where the blocking is more than fine. Mace, honestly, I think it comes down to just using the right back and then giving them enough attempts. Whatever that number is, I'd like it to be 30 for the entire backfield. Split it up however you'd like.
They went into the bye week 5th in run block win rate according to ESPN Analytics. They left the bye week 5th in run block win rate according to ESPN Analytics. There you go. Second straight year we've talked about the guys up front delivering the goods in pass pro and run blocking. Of course, we'll mention that they're number 1 in pass pro.
Yes.
And by the way, they were number 8 last year with Russell Wilson. So, the whole thing of, Bo Nix is making them good. Bo Nix is certainly helping the sack rate, no doubt. But the whole point of keeping track of the win rate is to take the quarterback out of it and focus on the matchups up front.
Yes.
So you've got a combination of a quarterback who gets the ball out quickly and makes fast decisions and a line up front that is winning its one-on-one battles consistently.
I like that. And I like the fact that it's Bo Nix getting rid of the ball quickly. I want him to get some support from that backfield, just a number of carries, and you'll have the numbers in front of you, Mace, so forgive me if I'm wrong here. But Bo Nix has more passing attempts than Josh Allen. He has more passing attempts than Justin Herbert. Now, Herbert's in a Harbaugh system. But still, I didn't want to get to this point of the season because I'd said roughly about 3,500 yards, 25 to 30 passing touchdowns, and then 10 interceptions. He's on track for those numbers. But, brother, I thought it was going to be like 450 attempts. What's his number right now? Isn't it close?
He's already at 434. He's going to hit 450 on Sunday against Indianapolis.
Oh, my God.
These are the only quarterbacks he trails. Joe Burrow, Geno Smith, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins, and Baker Mayfield. And there's Bo Nix right there above Josh Allen, right there above Lamar Jackson, right there above Justin Herbert, right there above Jordan Love. Jalen Hurts above him too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's working, but it's not ideal. Sean Payton always talks about the two things that you need to support a young quarterback, a rookie quarterback, are the running game and a stout defense. Well, in spite of last week's letdown, despite giving up the bushel full of yards, Broncos still ranked 8th in the league in total defense. Scoring defense, they rank 3rd. So you've got that part of the equation. And like we mentioned, if you just took the Estime and McLaughlin carries on a per carry basis, you'd be top 10. You'd be comfortably in the top 10 in average per carry on the ground. I mean, just like last year, and we talked about this last year with Jaleel and Samaje, right?
Mhm.
Unfortunately, Javonte Williams' carries brought down the productivity of the running game. And unfortunately, we're seeing that again this year. I mean, it's interesting because Javonte is still, he's still really effective as a pass catcher. And that's why I say let's distill this thing down to third downs. Have him be the Samaje Perine type of role, because that seems to be working for him, despite his low per carry average. Cease, he's so far this season averaging nearly 7 yards a reception, which is well up from last year where he averaged 4.9 yards a catch. So he's become more effective in the passing game, become more effective in space. Is still very effective as a blocker, but as an every down running back, last year 3.6 yards a carry, this year 3.6 yards a carry. I think we've got our answer as to kind of what he is post-injury now. We're sitting here on 29 games played. We've got a sample size over the last 2 years.
Yeah, and there's no shame in being the Samaje Perine. You can make plays. Look at Perine sealing the game for the Chiefs last week, right? Like, that's what Javonte can be. But I ask you this, Mace, with trepidation in my heart, because why aren't they giving Oster Estime more work? Why aren't they giving Jaleel McLaughlin more work? Pass blocking.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be, right? I mean, the numbers, the advanced data, we know that Sean Payton does pay attention to analytics. Everything points to more Jaleel, more Estime, but stubbornly, because my mind goes, why are they stubbornly hanging on with Javonte? Oh, pass pro. They trust him in
blocking.
Pass pro.
Blocking keeps you in the lineup. Ask Lil Jordan Humphrey about that outside, not only as a run blocker, but also blocking on bubble screens and tunnel screens and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Do they think it's going to be a tell then? Like, if Audrick's out there, are they worried about someone sending a blitz right at him? And Jaleel, the same thing, or multiple blitzers, because we've seen Javonte. Sometimes you get two, and Javonte usually picks the right guy to block. Maybe a young back doesn't do that.
You want them to learn from him, but I mean that's part of the equation, right? You trust him. Javonte makes very good decisions in protection. The only time you see a play where there's a sack is like it's against Kansas City, where they bring the double A gap, and it's just okay. He's got to choose one, and Bo's got to get rid of it before the other comes in. Javonte did his job and did it very well in that situation, even though it ended in a sack. Javonte did very well in that. So,
yes,
I mean, the pass pro element of it for a running back, rarely do you walk into the NFL at a high level in terms of that particular skill set. That's usually something it's 2 or 3 years in the making. It's kind of like with a tight end. They can get right as a pass catcher pretty soon, but when you add in the blocking element of it, they say tight end, it's 3 positions, right? It's pass pro, run blocking, and then actually being a receiver. The latter is the one that the guys tend to get first, and then the rest has to come in time. So it's not an ideal situation in which the Broncos find themselves. I mean, it also puts things in line for going running back like you want to really high to take Ashton Janty at the top of the draft next year, because assuming he can become an effective enough blocker, there's the guy who's going to be out there every down if you get him. He's a workhorse.
Yes, that's what I want for this team. But with this class, and we won't get too deep into this, Mace, because this class is amazing. Devin Neal in the 3rd round sounds pretty good too. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't get Ashton Janty in the 1st round, maybe Omarion Hampton if you want a young Javonte Williams.
Exactly the guy I was going to say. Now, the thing is, you may say, oh, North Carolina back. I mean, Javonte was really
Nick
good
Chubb when he came out.
Before he shredded his knee, he was on his way to stardom.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's one of the sadder on-field tales in Broncos history. It's if not for that injury, we're talking about Javonte probably already having his extension.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and actually the fact that he keeps going out there despite the lack of production in terms of the running aspect of his job, that's a tell for what the coaches think of him.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
The Javonte's had, if you count, he didn't. Jerry Rosberg was the interim coach while he was injured. But if you count that, he's had 4 head coaches in his career, and they've all loved him. Says a lot about him, right?
Yeah. Go through that many staffs and be able to have that sort of kind of consistent support of your game. Like, we support Javonte Williams, but we just know that he's not what he was supposed to be.
And at some point, you have to ask the hard question, especially when you're sitting there right now and you are finding production. I mean, Jaleel McLaughlin, he is who he is. I mean, he is a hard worker. No one studies more. And yeah, he's not Javonte as a blocker. He is maximizing everything he can be physically to do what he does when he is asked to block. With Jaleel, you get every ounce that he has in him. It's to his credit. But every ounce probably means the best optimization of him short and long term is probably no more than 10 or 15 touches a game.
Yeah, worried about him wearing down.
If you use him properly, he could be around and be effective for you for 8 years. I mean, isn't it nice to have a guy who is your, depending on the situation, your number 2 or number 3 back, and he can come in and get 4.7 yards a pop? I mean, he may not be perfect. You often talk about how he tends to kind of go down at contact, although he has the last couple of weeks, you've seen him break some tackles. Like, he's getting better at that. And that's another thing with him. It's almost like every time he gets challenged in some way, you got to come up as a pass pro. Oh, you're going to have to break those tackles. Whenever he is challenged, he works on it and gets better at it. That says a lot about him as well. Like, in a specific role, you want him on your team. You want people like him on your team. He is a good culture guy in that locker room because he sets a good example, not only in terms of how much he is willing to watch film and how early he's there and how hard he's working, but also because he sets a good example for all the undrafted guys that are on the fringe of the roster that maybe you're kicking between the 53 and the practice squad that don't know if there's a path. Well, Jaleel shows there is a path. Alex Palczewski could be one of those guys too, depending on what the Broncos' plans are next year. We'll see. We're fixing to find out.
We are. Paul in the chat room says, release the juggernaut, which is Estime. Here's what I want to know about Estime. And he's had 41 carries this year. I would like, and I'm not going to get it, Mace, okay? But it is the Christmas season. Here's on my Christmas wish list. I want 41 carries over the next 4 games for Audric Estime. Okay. That's 10 a game. Brother, I'm not asking for too much. I know I'm not going to get it, but I want to know that because, as we've mentioned, I want Ashton Gente in the first round. But if you say Dylan Simpson from Tennessee, kind of an Alvin Kamara, there's a 3rd round guy. Jordan James, more of a change of pace back. There's a 3rd round guy. Ohio State has 2 backs. Devin Neal, I've already talked about. Like, you've got options on rounds 2 and rounds 3 of this draft, but damn it, you can't draft one assuredly if you're kind of wondering about Audric Estime. Can Audric Estime be a bell cow, or is he a power complement to your featured back?
I mean, right now for me, the list is kind of starting with Janty, Hampton, and Neal and going from there.
Okay.
As every down backs. I mean, Hampton's 220. Dude is built, man. He's a rock.
This is a great running back class.
It is. I mean, the only thing with Hampton is, I mean, you wonder if Bill Belichick could convince him to come back. if Bill Belichick takes that job, right? I mean, oh my gosh. Oh, goodness
Hampton
gracious.
can be what Javonte was supposed to be.
Yeah,
and with Jaleel, here's the nice thing about Jaleel, as you mentioned, the last couple of weeks, he has actually ran through shoestring tackles. And I don't say that sarcastically. Like, he's been doing it, right? He should do it, and now he's doing it more consistently. You know, the other thing I've seen, Mace, which is really, really cool, he's getting a little Le'Veon Bell to his game. Now,
Ooh.
before anyone's triggered out there, what I mean is this. He's kind of letting the blocks, he'll get to the line of scrimmage and he'll kind of stop and let the blocks kind of do, and then because his burst is amazing. So when I saw him do that against the Browns, I was like, holy crap, he just went Le'Veon Bell. So instead of running into contact, which he can't do, he kind of runs up there and then lets the blocks develop while he stops, and then he starts again. And I mean, this type of style change could really work for him.
Patience too. That's the thing.
Yep.
You know, you want someone who can hit the hole quickly, but it's not simply take ball, go through crease as it forms. No. It's take ball, sometimes wait for the crease to form, and then the moment you see it, hit it as quickly as you can. You identify it, and then you attack it. You and I have said that's what kept Melvin Gordon around for 2.5 years on this team, even as the fumbling problems developed, is because he could read those creases really well as they developed. Better than Javonte, which is, go back to 2021. Everyone's like, why are they splitting carries? Well, they were both equally effective in the end sum, and Melvin Gordon got there in a different way. He didn't have the angry runs like Javonte or the pure explosiveness like Javonte, but he read the creases so perfectly that he was getting yards where Javonte, as he's still figuring out how to read those creases, was getting caught in the backfield. So that's a skill as well. And when you're seeing the growth happen with a young player, as you're seeing right now, I mean, that's encouraging as well. It's strange, like, to go to Jaleel for a second. I don't know who the Broncos RB1 is going to be next year, but I feel like I have a pretty good sense that barring injury, Jaleel McLaughlin's going to be RB2 or 3 in 3 years. That he'll get that he'll get a moderate second contract out of what he's done for a specific role that fits what Sean Payton wants to do.
Yeah. And isn't that amazing? We can't tell you the starter next year, but I can tell you that Jaleel McLaughlin will be on the team in 3 years as the Darren Sproles role.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Like it's nice to find that kind of back as well. One thing we did, we got so tied up on running backs, we didn't talk about penalties that much, but that's what Sean Payton was focused on yesterday. Here's the clip.
Hold on. Oh, please. All right, here's Sean Payton on penalties.
Our penalty numbers are still problematic. I don't like our penalties relative to the offensive line. We're near the bottom of the league in that category. We're near the bottom of the league relative to the secondary. Those have to get cleaned up, or they'll end up costing you.
All right, let's go through this.
Yeah, you've done the research, Mace. Tell us about the penalties.
Broncos secondary, sixth, tied for sixth most penalties in the NFL so far this season. Broncos offensive line tied for 10th most in penalties this season so far. Overall on penalties, the Broncos aren't quite as bad, according to NFLpenalties.com, in terms of overall infractions, and this includes decline penalties and offsetting penalties. They are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. They are 13th from the bottom. Baltimore leads the league in penalties with 124. I think one thing that is interesting about the penalties to which Sean Payton was referring, offensive line and defensive backfield. This includes infractions committed by those players on special teams as well. They are one of 6 teams that rank in the bottom 10 in both of those categories. And 4 of them, Denver, Kansas City, Buffalo, and Baltimore, are in playoff position right now.
Damn, Skippy.
Yeah.
So what is your official judgment, Mace? Because we had talked about this off air yesterday, and you said, you're going to dig in, you're going to see. And I ask you what your diagnosis is. One, mainly so I can tell everyone the word etymology of diagnosis, which means to go through knowledge, gnosis, diagnosis. What is your diagnosis here then on the penalties? Is Sean telling the truth?
Yeah, he was. At first, I wasn't quite sure, and then I had to do some more number crunching. When you're saying bottom 10 in both categories, I mean, it's not at the bottom of the league, but I think when he says near, so he gives himself some wiggle room there. So I don't think he's wrong on that. So they could be worse.
Now we know what Sean Payton was obsessing over during the bye week.
He got that in at the end of his press conference too. That was the thing. Like he was talking about, some other stuff coming out of the bye and all that, and he mentioned the penalties. Like it's always something he wants to get off his chest. It was like the week after the Raiders win last, a couple weeks ago, when I asked him about Devon Vele, and he answered a question about Audric Estime before realizing he got asked about Vele because he wanted to talk about Estime because he keeps talking about wanting to get him the ball.
When is he going to do that then? You can Sean, you control things. You know that. You discovered electricity. Like, do it.
Oh, man. I mean, it all comes down to him. It's like last year. Remember, he kept saying we got to get Marvin Mims Jr. the ball more often. Well, that's on you. You're the play caller, man. This is
your show.
It's your team. You can do whatever the heck you want with it. If you want to play Jarrett Stidham on Sunday, you can. I mean, it would be insane, but you could.
If you wanted to.
I cannot underscore how, barring injury, that would be one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. But in theory, you could do it.
Yeah, it's on the table. It's on the table.
Nothing against Jarrett Stidham. It's just that, Bo Nix is your alpha, your guy, your team captain. He's playing well. He's one of the most improved quarterbacks in the last 54 years. And in fact, the most improved quarterback in the last 19 years from the first 4 games to the next 9 that he started. So, yeah. But I just throw that out there to say, if you're the coach, this is how much control you have over things. It is in your grasp. I can't do it. You can't do it, Cease. Viewers can't do it. Assistant coaches can't really do it. They can recommend. The head coach can.
Oh, we know the guy that can. It's time to do it, Sean. Coming out of the bye, you want to be different as you build confidence and momentum for the playoffs. Run the ball better, cutting down on your penalties. The chat room was talking about using the tight ends. I think that's a fantasy this year. I think Dover mentioned, can Donald Parham get out there? I'm like, yeah, I mean, until we see it, Mace. And Tyler Bidet, of course, got some love in the chat room as well. Maybe the secret weapon for the Broncos in the postseason.
We talked about it last week. Tyler Bidet is a reason why they let go of Josh Reynolds. Not the only reason, because it involves the depth at wide receiver, but a reason, because you're coming up on the limit of elevations from injured reserve, and Bidet is a guy that you may want to use one of those elevations on. By the way, at tight end right now, just to kind of go through what you've got on the roster, Lucas Kroll, 13 catches, 120 yards. Adam Troutman, 9 catches, 158 yards. Nate Atkins, 7 catches, 50 yards. And the since cut Greg Dulcich, 5 catches for 28 yards. So you're actually looking at a group that is – it's going to be a bit more productive than last year's, but not by much.
Still a problem.
Yeah, and that's why
Tyler Warren, Devin Neal.
Exactly.
Tyler Warren, Devin Neal, man.
I did say that. I mean, that's how can you solve both issues? And that's the whole thing. Yancey may be tempting, but then, I mean, you have to go deeper in the tight ends. But, I mean, I think it's the value of tight end one. I do agree with your assessment that there is one problem that may exist out there, and that may be can come in and have a season exactly like Brock Bowers did, and I don't think that's the case. I think Tyler Warren can be very good as a rookie.
If they draft him, Mace, we're going to be fighting that because people will be saying that. We'll be saying, no, he's good. He's good. You got to flip and wait and understand he's not Brock Bowers. He's more Taysom Hill. But get ready for that, brother. Get ready for that battle. If they draft him, you and I are going to have to be the voices of reason because people will be like, oh, why can't he do like Brock Bowers?
I mean, I'll just go through another name from recent history here. I mean, can we agree TJ Hawkinson's been very good for most of his career when he hasn't been injured?
Very much so. Mm-hmm.
You know how many 1,000-yard seasons TJ Hawkinson has? Correct. Yeah. And yet, if Tyler Warren's production, Hawkinson through 78 games over 6 seasons has over 3,800 receiving yards, 23 touchdowns, and 368 catches. If Tyler Warren has that sort of production early, that may not be Brock Bowers level, but I think you ought to be throwing a parade and giving him a contract extension. And that's what it may look like for Tyler Warren. And that's perfectly fine. If you're talking about a pass catching tight end who's getting 600 to 800 yards, perfect. And that's what it may look like for Tyler Warren, and that's okay. Brock Bowers, I think, is going to be like just unicorn type.
Oh, yeah. As I go Mr. Burns here. By the way, we got to talk about the Simpsons game before we're out of here. Look at what Rodney
we had that
says
on
in
here.
the chat room. Rodney says Dawson Knox in the offseason if they let him walk because they got Dalton Kincaid. And so I'll do a would you rather. Would you rather Ashton Gente and Dawson Knox or Tyler Warren and Devin Neal?
You know, it's interesting because
I love this from Rodney, by the way. This is awesome.
I've been waiting for Dawson Knox to launch, and yet the last couple of years, and some of that is Kincaid in there, his star has fallen a bit. Mm-hmm. The question becomes, is that a function of Kincaid gobbling up the reps, or is it a function of here Dawson Knox is now about to go into year number 7. He's 28 years of age now. The clock is ticking. Man, that's tough.
Next to Knox. Nick's Knox.
Yeah, Nick's Knox. Well, what you need is someone named Knack, and then you could have, there was a late sports writer, William Knack. If you had Nick's, Knacks, and Knox, you could have Nick, Knacks, and Knox.
That would be awesome.
Nick, Snacks, and Knox. Oh my gosh, that is a tongue twister. It's like my daughter was doing some of the Ron Burgundy tongue twisters. The arsonist had oddly shaped feet. Unique New York. The Human Torch was denied a bank loan.
What do they have against the Human Torch, man? Come on.
I don't know.
What did the chat room has against the Simpsons game? I quite enjoyed it. It was Cowboys-Bengals. You think I'm going to pour over the game broadcast of Cowboys-Bengals? I've watched the coaches tape, but damn it, Mace, I like the Simpson thing. Maybe it was lame or whatever, but it was different. So whatever.
It was different. I thought it worked a lot better than the Toy Story one did last year. I do think it was perfect for a game like this. I mean, I do wonder what element of Disney's IP they're going to try next. I mean, I guess it's obvious there's a Star Wars game coming at some point. But I actually think of what they have in their creative arsenal, The Simpsons probably worked the best for it. Just because of it's ostensibly set on Earth. It's, there's a pretty broad canvas to draw from. I'll actually say this. I was surprised at how well the game was replicated in that format. So what I did was it was about a minute behind the minute and a half behind the actual game broadcast. So I paused. So I had the Simpson broadcast on the television and I had the game broadcast on a tablet or my phone. And I paused it so I could just sync it up, that broadcast, so I could sync it up with the Simpsons. So if I actually wanted to see a play, I could. I thought it was actually really interesting that there were times where you could see the pre-snap formation better on the Simpsons broadcast than the actual broadcast because they, with only a few exceptions, defaulted to the one kind of the Madden view of the game. And, sometimes, they would, move the camera around or they'd linger on a close-up on the game broadcast. And I'm like, I want to see the formation. I looked up and I'm looking at the Simpsons broadcast and I'm seeing the formation. The only thing you had to kind of keep up with mentally was when they would decide to sub out Joe Burrow for Bart Simpson or Lisa Simpson for Jamar Chase. And that I think is where the whole 60-second delay came in. Cause if they knew somebody made a play, it's like, okay, we're going to sub out. Okay. We're going to put Homer in now so he can get an interception, right? Or we're going to put Jamar Chase in right now because, or Lisa in for Jamar Chase because we want to see her scoring a touchdown. And and also the broadcasters helped you because to pull that off, you have to have people who really are fans of the show and can make references on the fly. And they did a really good job of weaving those in to the general context of the game. I enjoyed it. I wasn't sure how much I'd watch it. I watched it start to finish.
And you're the ultimate Simpsons guy, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, it worked for me. And it's a lot of a lot of things you chuckle at, like references and all that, like the Ralph Wiggum, me fail English, that's impossible. So they worked in impossible a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I really thought making Milhouse fumble when he got the ball in the fourth quarter, when the Bengals fumbled it on a carry, I thought that was cruel. I'm like, don't do that to Milhouse. Give Milhouse a big play, man.
Right.
I mean, Milhouse is resilient, man. Let's give some love to Milhouse Van Houten.
Yeah, and I think they did the choo-choo-choos on one of the plays. So
yes,
that's always a classic. They did not do my favorite Mo line, though. You know what it is?
What? I'm a well-wisher in that I don't wish you any particular harm.
Call this an unfair generalization if you must, but old people are no good at everything.
Oh gosh, they did prank calls with him. Yeah. Like football themed prank calls, and that's Mo. There was one where they went through the nicknames Mo had when he was a boxer, and it's like Kid Handsome, and then Kid Presentable, and then Kid Mo.
Sounds about right for Mo. All right.
Buddy gets you one more round.
We're going to be out there at Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit. So tomorrow and Thursday shows are to be determined for whatever time we start. So please forgive us.
5:30.
We're at the behest of the Broncos. It could be 4:30 if they get out of there on time, but we'll see.
I'm guessing 5:30 coming out of a bye. Especially if Sean wants to work on penalties. They might be working a while tomorrow.
Yeah, you might not text me to say practice is going to wrap early. Get over here.
Yeah, they've in a big week too. No mistake.
Huge.
You could even sense that from Jaleel and Zach Allen on the conference call Monday. This week's different. They know what's on the line. I mean, you win this, you feel pretty darn good about your playoff chances. And if you don't, then, we talked about this when the schedule came out. You didn't want to go to LA and Cincinnati having to win both of those games.
Yep.
And that need is predicated on what happens on Sunday. They get it done against Indianapolis. They've given themselves a buffer zone. Effectively, probably, unless Miami runs the table, they will have given themselves probably 4 or 3 weeks to get one win. But if they lose this one in Indianapolis with the Colts playing the Little Sisters of the Poor the rest of the way, the Broncos are in a spot of bother, no doubt. So this is it. As big a game as they've had probably since I won't say Super Bowl 50. I'll say as big a game as they've had probably since that the Titans and Patriots games in December of 2016, which they both lost to fall out of the playoff race that year. So it's been 8 years, man. 8 years since we've talked about some big games like this. Hope it turns out different than those 2016 games did.
It's been a minute. Sharon wants to know our current number. By the way, Mace, I never want to give us more work because if y'all knew what we do behind the scenes, maybe you'd have some mercy for us in the YouTube comments, which aren't always kind, but whatever, we're fine. But when we get to 16,000, I think you and I should do an OBT after dark.
Ooh, I like that. How close
just a
are
celebration, we? Just a celebration of everybody. Okay, our current number is 15,867.
Okay. So we're at 133. And by the way, another number, 75% is the Broncos' playoff chances. And again, the slam on the table. If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
So 133 needed here on December the 10th. So we got 21 days to get 133. I'm feeling pretty good. But come on. Just like the Broncos need to get over the goal line and clinch this playoff spot, so too do we want to get over the goal line. Thanks to your help. We appreciate all that's come. We just need a little bit more. A little bit more.
How can they help us out on YouTube, Mace?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you
never miss
a
vid.
That's right. He's Andrew Mason. Good to see you tomorrow, buddy. Travel safe. And
Will do.
I'm Cecil Lammey. Follow Mace on all the socials at Mace Denver, at Cecil Lammey. OBT is a BFD. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. Stay tuned. And would you please, as always, go ahead and stay frosty.